rapidly into virtual and hybrid operating models, the CFO is required to champion digital transformation both within the finance function and the organization at large. On this note, we have our next session on digital CFO leading transformation with technology. I'd like to welcome Mr. Rohit Razdan, who's the Chief Business Officer at CleartaxIndia. Rohit is a seasoned business professional, and before Clear, he was Director of Investments at 𝗪𝗲 Capital, a homegrown private equity fund, and partner at 𝗪𝗲Capital prior to this. He was an engagement manager at McKinsey, leading teams in corporate finance, due diligence, strategy, and marketing science. Rohit is an alumni of the Wharton School, North Carolina State University, and National Institute of Technology, Tirupati. Over to you, Rohit, if you'd like to share your presentation.
Yes. Thank you, Diksha. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to meet everybody. And I will be taking the next 15 or 20 odd minutes to take through a topic that is very close to our company and excited to see the same changes that we have experienced in other markets now coming in the Middle East, right? So within the kind of digital CFO kind of a mandate and technology-led transformation, the topic that I'm going to be double-clicking today on is what is the role of technology particularly in financial compliance, and how does that lead to certain network effects forming and accelerating in the world around you, and I'll try to show you a movie that we have seen in other places, and I'll also during this process tell you a little bit about what we do within this journey, right? So now if you see overall in any country or any kind of country that has a robust commercial system, right? There's anywhere between 100 and 200 compliances that their businesses have to follow, and these are only increasing over a period of time, right? So they can take kind of a company law kind of an orientation, they can take taxation kind of orientation, they can take labor kind of orientation, and so on and so forth, right? Now a lot of businesses want to be compliant, and it's becoming more difficult to become compliant given the nature of and the speed of change that is happening over there, and that exposes businesses to to a lot of risks from both a financial standpoint as well as from a reputation standpoint, right? Now what we see ahead of us, right, is overall Middle East and particularly I think Saudi and UAE, we see that these two markets are embarking on a very exciting digitalization journey, right? And it's actually not one particular plank. There are 4 or 5 different things on which we see kind of a push coming from multiple sides, right? So you have banking regulators pushing every day for a cashless economy. You have 𝗧𝗲𝗃 and FTA kind of moving in the direction of this, VAT to electronic invoicing. You have MCIT, the pharma regulators, and even I would say Ministry of Tourism kind of things, which are going in the digitalization journey. Now, all of these look like varied digitalization moves by different regulators. But what is interesting is there is a top-down push from multiple regulators, right, which is also meeting the bottoms-up apps developing and technology-led kind of proliferation happening on the supply side as well, right? So these two, when they come together, makes a very, very interesting world, right? Now, I would focus my attention today on the taxation and electronic invoicing side, right? Now, if you see what is happening globally, and I'll touch upon the global aspect in a minute, right? There are 2 different sides of the business that were always separate, right? One is compliance and one is supply chain, right? These are now getting connected together, right? Over a period of time, this will happen, and it's a very telltale sign when a country goes through a VAT kind of a regime, and then it announces plans to go electronic invoicing. Whether you realize it or not, they're fundamentally stapling these 2 things together, right? Compliance and supply chain, right? Now, compliance was never, hardly was a CXO level concern. It would be CXO -1 or 2 level concern. And it was largely, non-digital and so on and so forth. And the surveillance and so on were very, very porous and kind of on a self-declared kind of a basis, right? The supply chain was a completely different thing, right? Now, what is happening now is, especially with VAT and electronic invoicing coming in, right? And I'll take a minute about electronic invoicing, right? As most of you know, the fundamental why it follows VAT is, and you'll see that the countries that are leading the electronic invoicing globally are actually not the the US or UK and so on and so forth, right? It's actually the second world and the third world, right, which are adopting VAT and invoicing very simply because it's a matter of government revenues, right? So VAT provides a framework for government to be able to properly assess what's happening on the business side, and because the consumer taxation side or individual taxation side can become tricky from a political and other standpoints, businesses is much easier to handle. And then electronic invoicing comes in as an enforcement mechanism on top of that, right? So right now it has been implemented in 60 countries, right? And the exciting thing about electronic invoicing when it penetrates the market, right? Fundamentally, what is happening is from your point of sale system or from your ERP or any kind of billing system that you have, invoicing system that you have, there are anywhere between, call it 50 to 150 fields that are transported real time to the regulator, right? They read it, they stamp it with a cryptographic token, and they send it back, and you put out a QR code or whatever on your documents, right? So while it comes from a place of regulations right now, the interesting thing about this that we have noticed is it actually leads to this top-down change leads to fundamentally very different ways of doing your business, and it actually becomes a positive for the for the business themselves, right? So the impact you can see in places like France and Latin America and so on and so forth is that you have at one level kind of business happens faster, at another level working capital and financing, all those things, because now the fundamental unit of invoicing itself is digital. It leads to a lot of transparency and speed of doing business, right? Which is the exciting part, right? Now, what we feel is like electronic invoicing will bring a massive digital push, or it'll continue and take deeper the digital push that is already on the way between KSA and UAE, right? And obviously it will go to the rest of the GCC shortly thereafter, right? If you see kind of 17-18 is when kind of VAT regime got started. In 2021, the phase 1 of electronic invoicing came in. Now there is like phase 2, which we are kind of in the implementation phase of, and that goes live by January 1, 2023. And then you have kind of eventually what you'll see is VAT and electronic invoicing will start to become very tightly correlated, right? There will be matches, mismatches, and so on that will happen. And there will be questions either an internal team will ask or the regulator at some point of time will ask, right? So it leads to a lot of reconciliations and potential to see, non-compliances much more clearly, right? Then what we also see in the next couple of years is accounts payable and accounts receivable, right? Because again, the fundamental invoice itself is digitized. Those things start to happen very, very fast, right? They fast follow, and generally the order is you stay in, let's say, a 6 months to 12-month period of pain because of system changes for electronic invoicing, this and that. Getting APIs, your tech teams, your finance teams all have to work very, very closely together, right? So that goes to a 6 to 12 months of pain. After that, you realize, well, we have done all of this. Now, what else can we do with it, right? That's when the process of joy kind of starts, and that starts to lead a lot of CFOs and their teams into interesting creative areas, right? Now, if you actually see any modern CFOs kind of stack of things that they do, right? These are the 5-6 major things that they look at, from starting from planning to reconciliations, handling your supply chains, payments and credit, all of these things, right? Now, what is happening is, as the world is becoming a lot more digital and real time, right? One has to think about systems a little bit differently, right? In general, there are 2 stacks in any CFO's office of certain size and scale. There are 2 go-to stacks, right? There is a big 4, right, where you'd go for your financial side of things, right? Now, the problem that has now become is finance and technology have gotten married, right? So the finance solution, if you look at only as a finance solution, these are not tech-first companies. There is, their legacy systems. There are manual ways of doing either indirect or direct taxes, and the tools that they have are not really 21st century, right? The other kind of things on the commercial side that happens is these are very expensive, right, as propositions, and especially for things, use cases which are much more, I would say, dynamic and operational in nature. it becomes a very different, it can either take away control or lead to kind of a different level of billing than otherwise you would want, right? Now, if you look at the ERP world, right, which is the other stack that any CFO can rely upon, what happens is that for ERP solutions, kind of some of these markets are relatively small, right? So that's a commercial reason for them not to rush towards a solution over there. What also happens is that these are fundamentally compliance related things which are very different market to market, and therefore ERPs also you'd see them kind of adopted with a little bit of hesitance, or they would help bring a third-party tool within their system because they don't even want to touch it, right? It has liabilities associated and so on. And then the final thing is like the world of once you go real time as a stack, right? At that point of time, it is real time for you, it is real time for the government, it is real time for everybody, and real time systems can tweak, right? People try to improve it over a period of time. We've seen like even as Saudi went to VAT, they just they decided to tweak the rates, and now there's talk about those rates being tweaked again. So real time systems will tweak, and that becomes a little bit cumbersome from some of these traditional company standpoint, right? Now, what we find is that fundamentally, a lot of people are finding it very difficult to achieve complete compliance, right? And especially in the Middle East, that becomes extremely important, and the risks can be pretty severe, right? And that's happening because of two reasons. Why do people find it difficult? Number one, like I said, tax and supply chain are merging. Second is government is adopting technology very, very fast, right? And third is because of that, they have a lot of visibility, and therefore regulators are becoming very stringent. And you can read a bunch of these news on the right, and you can I'm sure observe it all around you. They are very serious about it, right? Because they want the VAT and VAT system to not have too much leakage, right? But also what does happen with it, right, is that it creates disruption in your fundamental business processes, right? So how do you process your suppliers? How do you deal with them? How do you deal with the buyers and your stores and the distributors? All of those things actually will change over a period of time. And what we'll see is, after the first level of implementation, even government goes deeper into implementing, kind of sophisticated business helpful tools after the compliance side is done, right? So now our belief is that given everything that we have heard today and even otherwise, right, brand reputation, which is what otherwise, it's as much about financial compliance as it's about reputation. These businesses realize that technology is the only solution, right? And that's when we see early adoption happening over here, right? Now, if you had to have three simple things, right, on compliance, right? What would you want as a CFO or a CIO or a CDO or a CTO is you would say, hey, first, everything on my side has to be digital, right? Like paper is just an absolute pain. And especially when half the systems are going digital, half a paper. So you would want to make a full transition to digital everything, right? And now, whether we like it or not, government is heading this way, right? So therefore, we are behind the government. We are not ahead of the government, right? And this is a common trend that we are seeing, right? Because government has been preparing for this for 1, 2, 3 years, and it all comes to you in one go, right? Second is, a lot of automation can be done if everything is digital, right? So there are lots and lots of programmable flows that can be created, and those programmable flows should be automated, right? And this leads to a lot of reconciliations and checks and balances and so on. Third is a single data source with very few errors, right? So over a period of time, if all your data is digital, all your data is available in one place, then it becomes very easy for you and your ecosystem to be looking at the same set of data in a live kind of a fashion, right? There's no need over a period of time to keep sending Excels and this and that, which is a huge pain, and it leads to, I would say, poor experience for everybody involved, right? So what we do is we make SaaS for SaaS solutions or software solutions for all of these use cases, which has got not just user experience, ERP integrations, very deep reconciliations and so on and so forth, and goes all the way to AI analytics layer, and helps remove the errors that otherwise you don't even know might be making and submitted to the government, right? And our belief is that, in the next few, years, 2 to 3 years, right? All these 4-5 things, right? Automation of processes, AI-based surveillance for tax compliance, kind of interlinking of multiple kind of tax structures, vendor distributor ecosystems interacting with each other. All of these things will happen, and that will lead eventually to technology-led, credit and kind of, discounting, factoring kind of penetration, right? Now, what we have observed is, in general, the route that people are taking is they adopt technology when everything else has been exhausted, right? So they'll first hire more people, then they will upgrade those people, then they will get some third-party people, right? And only last they will actually go and adopt technology because there is a fear of too much change, right? We believe that everybody will end up on technology, whether or not you like it, and the earlier you do it, the better it is. And what we do is we play across multiple customer segments, everybody from consumers to CAs to enterprises to SMEs. All of these use cases we kind of help support, and we have a 1,200 member organization, and we have a very large number of invoices that go through our system. And as you can imagine, the government has gone on cloud. You eventually, you have to transport your data, so you have to rely on some sort of an external pipe. That pipe is containing now very, very important business sensitive information. So therefore, the quality of the pipe and so on matters a lot. And we spend an inordinate amount of time thinking about how is our cloud solution the best middleware that can sit between a government database and an ERP or a POS system on your side. And fundamentally, what we are doing is we are creating a platform which sits on top of your ERPs, and it gives that connectivity to multiple third parties, whether it's folks like 𝗧𝗿𝗃 or FDA, or just third-party accountants or banks. All of these things can be done because you cannot let, as the business goes real time, these guys will demand information real time, and you can't let everybody kind of touch your ERP. So we provide that layer, and there are multiple products that we provide on top. Things, vendor management systems, kind of factoring solutions, VAT automation, electronic invoicing, a way to capture your inbound invoices and capture that information for your AP teams, AR teams, and so on. So those are the things that we do, and our goal is to make a platform which can be used by your whole ecosystem based on whatever permissions you give them, read permissions, write permissions, and whatever. We already have our full product is ready on the 𝗧𝗃 phase 2 integration. We've been approved by them, and we already have a solution that is compliant with all the laws of privacy and so on, data security inside the kingdom, and we are looking to scale up our teams over there. Some of the largest companies kind of work with us, and we would love to hear from you if any of you would like any help on the phase 2 invoicing go live. Happy to help you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rohit.